Today we're talking about mastering the mind. I really don't know what I'm going to talk about because I just had the most incredible reflexology done on my feet, and you can see it in my face, right? Yeah. That's the wonderful thing when you have that's how the body is. That's why we have a body. The body is here to experience these things, and when we experience things that's good for it, it touches the soul. The koshas, right? The Annamaya kosha, the food body, and then the Pranamaya kosha, the breath body, and then Manomaya kosha, the mental body, Vijnanamaya kosha, intellectual body, and finally Anandamaya kosha, which is your bliss body. So we went through the mental, we went through the physical with the reflexology. That brought it to the mind. It brought it to the prana, because she put me into pranayama. And with the pranayama, you relax. And then we got to the mind, which mixes with emotions, and then you relax that. And then you go to your intellect, which at this stage, when you're so relaxed, it goes. And you just go directly to the place of peace. And that's what we're working on. And you can get that from anything we do in life. We can get that. So long as we know we are these 5 koshas, we understand it. Then whatever treatment you get from the outside, you just focus inwards and you bring it inwards. When you understand the science of mind, body, and spirit, when we get involved in this, because the body is the instrument to learn about ourselves, then you understand the depth of the practice. And of course, if you have a practitioner, like practitioners that understand yoga, they take you to a place of spirit, and then the healing happens twice as fast, because they have the knowledge, you have the knowledge, and the instrument can connect, and the healing can come right away. Okay? So this is the meaning of yoga, connecting with the higher self, connecting with the divine, connecting with God. But what do we call God? You know, there is a lovely story. Let me read it to you. I thought this morning I read it, and I thought I must read it to you about a little bit about religion and what is God. This is the book, Song of the Bird by Anthony De Mello. Said the Lord Vishnu to his devotee, I am weary of your never-ending petitions. I shall grant you 3 requests. Make sure you choose them carefully, because having granted them, I shall grant you nothing more. That elated devotee did not hesitate. Here is my first request, he said. I want my wife to die so I can marry a better woman. His wish was immediately granted. Quite horrible, isn't it? I'm sure many people think that way sometimes. In my therapy work, I have seen this. And when friends and relatives gathered for the funeral and began to recall the virtues of his wife, the devotee saw he had been too hasty. So he asked the Lord to bring her back to life. That left him with just 1 petition. So remember, next time you think badly of your partner, to remember you might regret it. All right? I always say relationships go in phases. There are months when you're madly in love, and there are months when you're not so much in love, and there are days when you just can't stand the other person. That's a relationship. And just when you learn to accept the waves and just look at that person as divine, see, oh, that person has come to me for me to learn something, rather than expectation for them to give you something, which is what we always get in trouble with, wishing for them to give us something. But what have I got to learn with it? And then when you really, really can't learn anymore, you'll burn and you'll walk away. Or you will stay, but you've got to give it time either way. Because if you don't give it time, you don't know. And if you go for the wrong thing and you leave and you still haven't learned, guess what? The next partner will be the same. Maybe after a longer time, 4 or 5 years, but you will have the same problem. But if you stay long enough, then you kind of know, okay, this is too much now. I've lost totally my peace. I've given this enough time, and it's time to move away. But you will know. And that's really what you have to look at. But most relationships, after you go through so many ups and downs, you go, my God, I know that better the devil I know than the devil I don't know. Because it does happen. It's normal. And if ever you doubt these words, think about the relationship you have with mothers, fathers, brothers and sisters. A partner's kind of the same, except obviously there's sex involved in it or physical touch. But the others, if you think you have this with your parents, with your brothers, with your sisters, with your cousins. So if you just accept this is part of life, then, you know, when you get to the stage when you go, oh, I just want to get away from you, you know it's a stage. And then you'll just do what you need to do, and you know you'll come back to normal. All right? So this story is quite actually deeper than one reads it. So let's go to the next paragraph. So that left him with just one petition. He was determined not to make a mistake this time, for there would be no chance to change it. He consulted widely. Some advised him to ask for immortality. But what good was immortality, said the others, if he did not have good health? And health if he had no money? And money if he had no friends? Years passed, and he had still not made his choice. Life, or health, or wealth, or power, or love. Finally, he said to the Lord, tell me what to ask for. The Lord laughed when he saw the man's predicament and said, ask to be content, no matter what you get. As Sri Patanjali would say, by the practice of contentment, supreme joy is gained. Now, for those who don't know this and online, please repeat it with me. By the practice of contentment. Let them have time. So you repeat after me so they learn too, okay? By the practice of contentment.
By the practice of contentment,
supreme joy is gained. Good, memorize this, because this is kind of like one of the most important lessons, you know, because we can pray for, you say, why non-attachment? People think, oh, so hard, non-attachment. But Sri Patanjali also tells us, to a person of discrimination, all things are painful. Oh boy, does that sound depressing? It does, doesn't it? Because it's just the truth. Like Buddha would say, the Four Noble Truths, there is suffering. Now, but Sri Patanjali says, why, when you understand life, do you find everything painful? Then what do we do with our life? And then why bother to practice yoga? Why bother to pray? Why bother to do anything, right? And our master says, well, now that you know it's all painful, you will learn to accept it all. And you will also enjoy it thoroughly. Why? Because there will be no expectation. Life is going to be painful. Because why? He also tells us further. When you ask for something and you get what you want, when you get what you want, you realize it wasn't as great as what you thought it would be, right? It wasn't as great as what you thought as it would be. Then you will be disappointed. Or if you get what you want and you're so happy with it, guess what happens next? You fear losing it. You fear losing it. What if I should lose it? What if this happens? This is what I always wanted. And then you'll get, the moment the fear comes, as you think, you lose it. Because that's what you're attached to. So you have to let go of it. You have to look to free yourself. You have to let go of your desire. I got this, I wanted it, now it's brought fear. The only way out of this is to let it go. There's no other way out. Otherwise you stay in the cycle of vicious pain. Whether you like it or not, you stay in that cycle. And then we start praying and blaming God and asking for more petitions, like this man, asking for more and more. And the more you ask for, you feel, oh, I'm being punished, nothing's coming my way. No, it's us. We create this. There is only love. There is only love. God is only love. It will reflect what we think. We are the cell in the divine. Remember, Chapter 9 of the Bhagavad Gita, Yoga of the Cosmic Form. Lord Krishna showed himself to Arjuna, but he said, I have to give you special eyes to see what I really am. Because if you see them with your human eyes, you will freak out. You cannot handle what I am. So what did Lord Krishna, show Arjuna as student? And only because he was a good student, and only because he was a good person, and only because he was ready, and only because he really didn't want to cause harm to anyone, he gave him the vision. And this is why we practice yoga, yama niyama. Because if you want the real vision, you have to be ready for it. Otherwise you suffer. You cannot handle it. So people try to rush the yogic process. You can't rush it. It's discovering something far deeper that happens to settle inside of you, but is not you. How are you going to learn this? It only takes experience and time. So he shows him the vision. And he looks at Lord Krishna, who is his teacher, and suddenly he sees in his body angels and people praying and people laughing and joy and dancing and music and goddesses and gods. And he says, oh, this is so beautifully. And then suddenly he sees in that same body demons and war and pain and struggling and crying and gnashing of teeth, as they would say in the Bible, and all the horrible things. And when he starts to see the war and the battle and everything, and that side of God, he goes, oh my Krishna, I cannot take any more, give me back my eyes. And he got back his human vision. And it's a hard concept for many people to grasp, because everything is divine, right? But we can relate divine and divinity to beautiful things. But when we come to this earth, awful things and demonical things have to happen because it's duality. And the goal of us yogis, the goal is to transcend them both. That's so hard in this human life. It's not easy. And we have to transcend it. And this is why the study of the gunas and the koshas and the depth of these knowledge and Patanjali, why I love it. Because we're in an intellectual age. Unless we understand it. And the only way to understand it is like literally to hear it again and again and again. And neuroplasticity, they call it today. Sri Patanjali put it very easily. You practice for a long time without a break and all your heart. You don't have to study about neuroscience. But you see, modern language wants us to study about everything, and it's good. It's really good to study. It's really good to learn. But also, the important part of learning is to apply it in your life. So people, when they take too many courses, like I say, they don't apply each one. They don't have time. You can't. So I learned that very early on in my practice. Thank you, divine. So I stuck to Sri Patanjali, which changed my life, studying it just to one course. And the Bhagavad Gita I studied on my own for years and years and years and years. I just read it over and over again, together with Sri Patanjali, studying the science of how to do it, how to transform oneself. We transform. That's what we are doing. We transform to become, hopefully, a better person. Hopefully, we try. It's a long process. We make mistakes on the way. And this is the kindness of the divine. Now, this is where I find religion very hard sometimes, because you're bad or good, you're doomed to hell or heaven. No, I believe that all these mistakes and the dark parts of us, nowadays they call it shadows, right? Your shadow. And then people start studying about their shadow. And I go, why would you want to study about your shadow? It's there. The more you study about it, what happens?
The more you focus on it.
Yeah. Correct. But this is happening a lot now. Trauma has to be applied. And people are traumatized. I agree. I totally agree. But once you learn about it, the next step is let go. And the only way to let go is forgiveness and time. You gotta give yourself time. Letting go is not that easy. And to top it all, you need the practice. But when you apply all of that, like you all have known, many of you here and many in the room, when you apply the practice in times of need, wow, you cut your suffering by half. Maybe more sometimes. You cut the suffering. It's not that suffering goes away, pain is always there, because you can't eliminate pain from this life. But you can transcend pain with peace. You see? This is the work. This is the work. Can't get away from it. So acceptance, and then learn, okay, to one of total discrimination. All things are painful. Then you look, considering all things are painful, I'm really not doing too badly. And that's the upside of this. I'm really not doing so bad. I'm really doing quite well. And this is how we need to address it. And that's why the gratitude prayers, and that's why constantly being in gratitude. But please, I also ask nowadays, everybody got gratitude prayers. And people are saying thank you, thank you, thank you, but they're not feeling thank you. We become smart verbally. And that's not good either, because we have to live in truth, in honor, to get that connection. We can fool the world if we want, but we have to live in... When you go to sleep at night, it's the thoughts that will come to your mind. And if you can see them clearly, and this is the practice of yoga, you can transform them in time. But you need time. Whenever I have a really negative thought about anything, like the journey that we had a terrible journey from Morocco, which was a great lesson for me, because I became really impatient after a long, long time. I got this impatience, which I haven't felt for years, and I love it. I just love it, because I know it's true, and this is what I want you to see. I knew that God was talking to me, because I could see it so clearly that it's kind of like when you do this practice, you have, like I often say, when you start, you have a black cloth. So if somebody drops coffee on it, you won't see it. But when you practice for a long time and you have a white cloth and you drop one drop of a negative thought on it, oh my God, it consumes you. It does. And because you don't like yourself right away, and then the next step is don't judge it, because this thought is honest. It's not a dishonest thought. To be dishonest would be say, oh, I found it like a piece of cake. I didn't, and he's my witness. I didn't. It was really smelly and dusty and dirty, and we just chose the wrong ferry. It was funny. It was really funny. So anyway, so I'm watching my mind at this time. I'm going, I'm allowing this thing to disturb my peace. This is pretty pathetic. Nalanie, what's happened to you after years of practice? And I knew. I got too comfortable. You see, you always have to be on guard. So I spent the rest of the trip doing what? mantra chanting. And accepting that I felt it, not feeling guilty about it, because it was the truth. It was 100% the truth. But the battle is always, the spiritual person will always battle with themselves. And I go, this is really interesting. Why am I not just transcending it and go, I'm with the goodness. It's not a good ride, accept it, and that's it. But I was feeling guilty of not accepting it. Silly me. It was horrible. It was truthful. Now get over it, girl. That's it, done. And with spirituality, you see, we try to escape it by pretending that something doesn't exist when it does. And this is why I love Sri Patanjali again. When you are truthful about how you feel, then you watch yourself and you voice it and you take it out and you do da-da-da-da-da and it's done. And then you forgive yourself. It's done. And then you talk about it and you have a laugh. But it's out, do you see? And then the cloth is clean again. You just scrubbed it and it's fine. And by the time next morning comes, you're absolutely fine. It's gone. 2 hours, 3 hours, it's gone. So this is the great thing about spiritual practice that people seem to forget. We seem to bury all these things. And so from time to time, if you get a little bit of a push, think, it's my challenge, it's my wave. And it's okay. And it's okay to get frustrated sometimes. And it's okay because it's the truth. You're not hurting anybody by it. It's just the truth, right? So you don't need to pretend about the truth. And so do you see, this is the mind stuff. This is mind stuff. If you understand the yoga practice, as Sri Patanjali tells us, yogas chitta vritti nirodha tadadra stu swarupe vastanam. When we learn to restrain the thoughts, peace comes back right away. The peace comes back. Now, when you, in the old days, going back to a long time ago, I haven't felt like this for a long time. In the old days, if something like that happened, they were complaining for days. Right? I'm so glad you will understand. We're human. That's the wonderful thing about being human. We spiritually human. Because that's who we are. We are both. When people get too elevated only in spirit and forget about the emotions and the body, I have noticed they can be very judgmental. My way is the only way. Hard. I don't believe God is that, you know. And then you got people who are too much in the world and also doesn't work. So literally, we as yogis are doing a balancing act all the time. And this is why all the saints tell us the spiritual path is like a razor's edge. And at this point, I must really thank my master Sri Swami Satchidananda. Because if I didn't have him as an example, I think I would have judged myself too horribly and meanly. And if I judged myself like that, I would judge others the same way. This is the interesting thing about the yoga practices. I think sometimes we get so caught in the scripture and the words and the teaching, and that we forget that to be human is quite normal. Like I said, I saw it in my master, so that was a gift. You see it in Arjuna, who has all these doubts, who's supposed to be a great practitioner of yoga and a warrior, and still he has doubts, right? So to walk this yogic path, you constantly have to balance. This is why I beseech you all, ask you all, please spend time alone all the time. At least 15-20 minutes a day for yourself. For yourself, not for anybody else. It doesn't benefit, well, it does. When you feel good in yourself, everybody around you is benefited. You know the good thoughts that you have will reach, my grandmother used to say, your good actions and your good thoughts will reach 7 generations. Bless them. You will bless the generations by your thoughts. So maybe you don't want to do it for yourself. You know, I go, oh, I got to do it for the future generations, not for yourself, because it's difficult sometimes, you know, to do something for yourself. But when you say, okay, I'm going to devote this action to somebody else who's going to benefit, it's easier because you'll keep your word. You'll keep your word. At least, you know, as a child, I went to Catholic school, and every Lent, 40 days, we all had to make a sacrifice. Now, I learned the first year I was at school, I said, I'm not going to eat Cadbury's Dairy Milk for 40 days. I broke it immediately. Yeah, I really did. So the next year I said, okay, can't do this because my mind wants, I want. So I learned this at a very young age. I want dangerous. Okay, what am I going to do? I won't eat chocolate for 40 days so that this person could get better. I would do it that way. Or it was always somebody who was sick, my grandmother or my brother. My brother he's passed away 2 years ago, but he had rheumatoid arthritis and he was very sick, and I adored him. I'll do this for my brother's health. And I could do it because every time I was tempted, no, my brother's health became really easy for me to do. And still today, if I make anything, it will always be for someone, you know. And then it's who benefits, right? You benefit. It's like the example I was saying, let's talk about massage since I've had a massage. When you massage somebody else's hands, for example, and using all that lovely oil massaging their hands, who gets massaged at the same time, right? You do. So, you know, I learned this when I used to massage Les's hands in the early days, and I thought, I'm massaging his hands, but look how soft my hands have become. Sorry, I haven't done it for a long time. So look how soft my hands have become, right? Because it's you benefit. So whatever we give to our world, really, or to the people around us, we benefit, and we keep thinking that wanting things benefits us. Actually, wanting things makes you miserable. This is why Upanishads, when the desires that strangle the heart are loosened, the mortal becomes immortal. What ties us up? The desires. And desires are not bad if they don't strangle you. But most people are strangled by a desire. Either I want this or I don't want this. Both are desires. Attractions and aversions, both disturb the mind. They disturb the mind, right? They don't want to disturb. I didn't want that journey to arrive at 3:30 in the morning. You know, it disturbs the mind because I didn't want. So what was the prayer? Let me, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. The serenity. Always ask, like in this story, ask for contentment. If you have to ask for anything, ask for contentment.